Hello, everyone. It is Friday evening once again, and we are here with Living the Abundant Life. And therapist Tori is here. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I love the show being on Friday because Friday is like the best day of the week. So I'm doing good. Hope everybody else is doing good today.
Indeed, indeed. Ooh, I agree with you on the Friday. This has been a long, interesting week, but we're here, and we are going to have another topic to encourage people on. And we agreed to talk about anxiety. So,
Mm.
therapist Tori, could you give us a definition of anxiety?
Well, anxiety, I guess the foundation of it is fear, you know. Um, and, anxiety can really permeate every area of your life, your thought process. There are a lot of people who are paralyzed with fear. And, a lot of times in counseling, the acronym for fear is false evidence appearing real. Um, so sometimes, we can think or we can feel that something is real when it really isn't. And we really don't have any evidence to substantiate the things that we're afraid of. But anxiety is a big deal. I mean, here we are in this era of COVID. This is what been the last um, 2.5 years. Yeah,
Yeah.
but 2.5 years. And so, I think obviously when COVID first started and everything was shut down, um, I had about maybe 2 or 3 weeks of things being slow as a counselor. But after that, as the old folks say, it was 40 going north. So,
Right.
um, people became very, if you were already anxious, I mean, COVID only took it up 10,000 notches, so, and there are still people who are very fearful as a result. And I'm not saying anxiety only stems from COVID. I'm not, definitely not saying that. But, um, people being forced to be at home,
Wear a
added
mask.
to that, grief and loss, Um, so, yeah. Actually, I would like to dedicate this show to one of my graduate interns. She was interning with me, and her name is Susan, and actually lost her due to COVID. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, generalized anxiety is like anxiety that permeates every aspect of life, whether it's friend, family, you know, work. It can permeate everything. There's people um, that suffer different phobias, like agoraphobia, where they're afraid to go out of the house. Um, so anyway, I'll let you get
It's
back
pretty
to
much
your question.
it's pretty much a phobia in everything in
Yeah.
actuality, and it's crazy that we have to go through these things. So even myself, how do I know if I'm experiencing anxiety?
Well, there are different symptoms. So it can be heart palpitations, sweaty hands, racing thoughts, um, crying. There's, a lot of physical symptoms, like you can be grinding your teeth,
Mm,
fidgeting. You may be sitting talking to somebody and they're constantly like fidgeting with something.
mhm.
That can be a symptom of anxiety. So there's various physical manifestations of anxiety. Um, so what's interesting is sometimes people have panic attacks, and oftentimes it feels like a heart attack. And I've heard of people actually, going to the emergency room because they're having a panic attack.
Okay. I didn't realize it can be that strongly, or it can affect someone that strongly.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, could anxiety
It can be pretty severe.
fatal even?
Mm, no, not necessarily fatal. Now, if someone is having these types of symptoms and it goes on for years unchecked, I mean, ultimately, yes, it could, in that respect, become fatal if this is something that just goes on for years and years and years and is something that's never addressed. Yeah, it can be fatal.
Wow.
But yeah, but that, I think, coupled with other things, it takes a while to get to that point.
Right. Okay. All right. So, what are the risk factors for anxiety disorder?
Well, the primary risk factor is that, to a great extent, you're not really enjoying life.
Mhm.
There's, you're not present, you're not in the here and now. You're either, thinking about past things that happen and being fearful that those things are going to happen again, or you're afraid of what could happen. And, there's people that make dramatic alterations to their life because of fear, because of what could happen, not because of what's happening, but what could happen. So, so the biggest effect is, in the here and now, in the present, in the current, like I'm not fully enjoying myself. I'm not fully enjoying my life. Because, I'm constantly inundated with negative thoughts about what could be
Mhm.
instead of what is.
Right. Okay. Is anxiety always a bad thing?
Well, no, I would say no, because just like, we hear and talk about entertainers and people that go on stage or do training, there's always like a little bit of a little bit of angst, or a little bit of, as we say, butterflies in your stomach
Mhm.
about, so that can be energizing or motivating thing. I mean, not to the point where it's overwhelming, obviously, but no, I would say a little bit of anxiety is not necessarily a bad thing. Like we can utilize that energy in a good way. So
To use to your advantage. Got it. Um, the the question is, I can't turn off my mind at night. How do I do that?
I can't turn off my mind at night. Well, yeah, I know a lot of people do suffer from racing thoughts, and my recommendation has always been to do some journaling, write those thoughts down, um, maybe do some meditation. Um, those are probably the primary things. Maybe having a certain ritual that you do at night, like taking a bath, soaking, lavender, things like that help you to calm down. But I think one of the major things is like if I at least get this out, like having like a cathartic experience like journaling, like the racing thoughts and the things that I allow to permeate my mind perpetually, I write that down. And so therefore, if I write it down, I'm not, continuing to think about it.
Have it to your head. Okay. Okay. And also on that note, does breathing help anxiety?
Definitely. Because one of the things, and as earlier we were kind of talking about symptoms of anxiety, one of the things is that we actually stop breathing. We not literally stop breathing, but we may catch ourselves holding our breath, and you don't even, it's something that you don't even realize that you're doing it, but you're holding your breath. So one of the things that we can exercise in terms of anxiety is do what's called autogenic breathing. And what that is you're taking air all the way to your diaphragm, like you're breathe, this long breath in that you take all the way into your diaphragm, hold it for like 3 or 4 seconds, and then release that breath. And so controlling your breathing is something that can control some of those feelings of anxiety. The other thing is, like, we might realize that, as we become more anxious, we get tense and tight. And so, realizing that, bringing your shoulders down, a lot of times during the day, I'm like rolling my shoulders and, raising my arms, stretching, because I realize some of that stress may be building up in my back. So practicing those breathing exercises, recognizing, when your body is becoming more tense. It's a simple thing, but it really does help a whole lot.
All righty. So in a situation like this, when is the right time to seek professional help?
Really anytime. I don't think that, we necessarily have to wait on something to happen. Most times people do, most times something is happening. There's some type of, transition that's happening in their life, whether kids growing up, relationship issues, work issues. People, there's really some type of predicating or significant event that causes people to actually go to therapy. You don't necessarily have to wait on that. If you know that anxiety and or depression is something that you deal with periodically, therapy is never a bad idea. Mm-hmm. So, you might have to choose the right therapist and have the right, have a good rapport, obviously, so that you feel like you're making some progress and you feel like you're in a safe space. Right. That's important. But really anytime. And especially if you have been experiencing, high levels of anxiety, like panic, you feel panic stricken. You feel like the anxiety is beginning to affect your health physically. Those are always indicators that, something needs to be done.
Okay. Another question is, I feel like I'm the only one experiencing this. Am I far out?
Say it again.
I feel like I'm the only one experiencing this. Am I far out?
Well, no. Most people experience anxiety at some point in their life. And, so many different types of triggering events can cause that to happen. And it may be some things you're anxious about that you didn't even realize before. But anxiety is pretty common. It's not something that's uncommon, especially in our society. Like, American society is very um, stress driven. You know, I think a lot of people feel like that's productivity if I'm stressed out about something, but it's really kind of wasted energy. It's not necessarily, productive. But I think in our society, like we have become so accustomed to stress
Mm-hmm.
and we live with stress, not for months, but for years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's at that point that it begins to take a toll on us physically. So, it's really, really, really important for us to realize that stress has become an unhealthy part of our life.
You're right. It has. Should I take medicine for, as they put it, my anxiety?
Mm-hmm.
Should I take medicine for my anxiety?
Well, I'm not a physician, and one thing that I share with my clients, like I'm not a pill pusher. I don't. Now if something has become debilitating, like functioning on a day-to-day basis, it
Mm-hmm.
has been debilitating. Like every day I'm struggling with getting out of bed. Every day I'm struggling getting out of the house. If
Mm-hmm.
something is interfering with, your day-to-day life, then that's probably an indication that you may need medication. And so people definitely would have to consult with their physician. Thank God I don't prescribe medication because I don't want that responsibility. But that's kind of how you gauge whether or not you need medication. Can I or am I functioning on a day-to-day basis, or is that being hindered?
Mm-hmm. How can I stop anxiety from affecting my job?
Well, it depends on how someone might address that. Now, I've talked to people who have extremely good leadership at work and they have a good relationship with their boss and they can, have that conversation, about what may be anxiety provoking as far as work is concerned. Maybe it's deadlines, maybe it's fear of doing something wrong. So some of that can be mitigated with, having a really good rapport with your boss and being able to, talk about some of your concerns as far as work is going. So outside of that, talking to your therapist. So I'm sorry, I may be getting lost. What was the full question? I hope I'm answering all of it.
Sure. How can I stop anxiety from affecting my job?
Much of that is finding out what the source of it is, because sometimes what people talk about may not be the core of it, so what is the core root of the anxiety?
Mm-hmm.
Because honestly, there are things that, people can bring forth from childhood. Maybe it's some, and I think before we kind of talked about what is the narrative? What is the story that you're telling yourself? For instance, it could be someone like they're maybe during their childhood or whole life, someone has been telling them, you're never going to be any good. You're never going to amount to anything. You're never going to be good enough. Nobody's ever going to love you. You suck as a mother or a friend, a wife, a husband, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so there are times when we internalize these messages, and these messages are kind of, no matter what the situation is, these messages are playing in the back of our head. And so we after a while, you tend to believe some of these messages that have been internalized, and it comes out, in our actions, our behavior, our attitude, the way we interact in relationships. So we really have to question, what's the narrative, you know because sometimes we don't even realize that it's happening. you know um Miss Carla said something.
She said, sad but true. Seems like stress is just always there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. I feel like it's kind of a natural part of life, especially here in the States. Um, and it's interesting, like I know I've told you and some other friends and family that, I've been to Jamaica many times. And I think what I love about being there, I don't feel any stress, like very little. And a lot of times it's the attitude, and it's the attitude of the people and the environment. It's like, oh, it's okay. It's okay. Everything's okay. you know. Um, but sometimes here at home, it's like, it's catastrophic. It's devastating, and really a lot of that isn't true. So a lot of the things that we go through and we experience, like we're thinking of it in very catastrophic ways. And what we call that as a psychological term is catastrophizing, and sometimes as we go through things, we have to ask ourselves, okay, is it a catastrophe? Is it the end of the world? Is it really? Maybe it's not,
Right. So, how about this? How can I help my spouse overcome anxiety challenges?
How can you help your spouse? Well, I mean, I think as spouses and partners go, we can be a support. I can support you. I can, and it's all in what we allow. I mean, sometimes we don't allow, people in our life to be a support. Now, I know I can't do anything for someone. I can support them, but I can't make you do it.
Right.
So, if someone would allow me to be a reminder, because sometimes we do need that voice of reason in our life to say, you know what, it's okay. I promise you, it's okay. I promise you, I'm here for you. If you need to talk, I'm here for you. So, but as far as implementing certain things and dealing with that internalized narrative, that responsibility is on me. I have to deal with that. I have to question it when it comes up, because no matter who it is, whether it's a family member, whether it's your partner, like, I'm not, they may not be there 24 hours a day. So yes, they can be a support, and you can, and in that effort, I think is good, but it still comes down to us individually. What are we willing to implement to change those narratives? So, and one thing I'll talk about, something that now, well, I used to work in corrections. I worked in juvenile corrections for about 6 years. And one of the things that we would do with the kids, because a lot of the kids that I work with, the age group was like 13 to 19. And a lot of times what we would do is like teach them how to deal with their anxiety, because a lot of them experienced anxiety and depression. And so one of the things that we would do is call it SOS. And the SOS, so the first S is slow down.
Okay.
So with slow down is, so a lot of times with anxiety, there's like, you can imagine the rat on the wheel. The rat is just going. And so sometimes that's how our thoughts are. Our thoughts are racing. Some people can't sleep at night because their thoughts are racing. And so with slow down, you basically are clearing your mind of whatever those thoughts are. And you can be anywhere. You could be, in your car, but not driving. In your car, at work, at home, it doesn't matter. But taking a moment, just close your eyes. And whatever it is that is that racing thought, like literally visualize a broom sweeping away those thoughts. So that's slow down. So the broom is sweeping out the thoughts. I'm gonna start with a blank slate. The O is orienting thought. So sometimes we have to reorient. Sometimes we have to remind ourselves of who we truly are. And it could be something that your mom said to you, your grandmother, it could be a scripture reference, but it's that thing that brings you back to your center. It's like, wait a minute, I need to remember who I am. I need to orient myself. I need to center myself, because honestly, I think that's why God called us sheep, because without a shepherd, we don't have any direction. Sometimes we feel like we don't have purpose. And so, it's, wait a minute, I need to remember who I am. Sheep, they'll walk off the edge of the cliff.
Right.
They fall over and the shepherd has to pick them back, sit them back on their feet. Sometimes That's how we get, and it's how we get in our thoughts. So it's like, if I remember who I am, if I reorient, then, I can get past this moment. I can get past this catastrophizing, because I realize it's not designed to take me out. Sometimes we feel like it. We feel like, oh, this is it. This is it. This is the end. I'm done. I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're not out. You're not done. It's not over. So the last S is self-check. And with self-check, we're essentially asking ourselves two questions. One is, what exactly is my level of stress in this moment? On a scale of 1 to 10, I need to do this little assessment with myself to ascertain, where am I right now? On a scale of 1 to 10, what is my level of stress? And the second scaling question is, what is my ability to deal with the current situation? Again, on a scale of 1 to 10. So it's kind of doing that little self-assessment. Now, if you realize, okay, I'm still feeling overwhelmed, I'm still not really in a good space, okay, we'll start over. We can start over with the slow down part, because maybe we really didn't slow down. Maybe we really didn't, sweep away those racing thoughts. So that's just like a quick self-assessment that a person can do if they're feeling super stressed out or they're feeling a little panicky. It's like, okay, let's slow it down. Just take a minute, breathe, relax, let's start over. So
Okay, indeed. Thanks for that breakdown. All right, so it's our half mark time. We're going to go ahead and play the Blast Artist of the Week. This is Stanley Flake, and this is his song Tranquility.
Wars have taken over the land because of greed in the hearts of men. People are dying for no reason at all, and the government is worse than it's ever been. There's no peace in the home. Husband and wives can't get along. Children, they often go astray, looking for love in a wrong way. A warm embrace given to a child now has been scarred by perverted hands. Mothers are restless, fathers are afraid because of a work that's been shipped away. Some preachers compromise the word of God, while the church has lost the love. I find it hard. There's got to be a better way to resolve these problems we're having today.
And that was Stanley Flake with Tranquility. It's a great song. I love that song.
Yeah, it's perfect for this show too.
Indeed, very tranquil, very peaceful, and non-stressful. I love
Yeah,
it.
I mean that's. Go ahead.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
No, you can go ahead.
No, I was just thinking, like, having a spiritual practice or faith, and I'm not necessarily advocating any particular religion, but I think having some spiritual practice in your life is definitely something that helps with feelings of anxiety. So,
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. But also, let me let everybody know, if you are an independent artist or even an up-and-coming comedian and would love exposure, you can go ahead and go to blastmusic247.com and register as an agent for free and be a part of the family. That's blastmusic247.com, changing the industry one artist at a time. All right, so we're going to keep going on. And give me a sec. Okay, putting stuff away. All right. How do I talk to my family and friends about my anxiety?
Well, I always, advocate for, as we say, identifying and explaining what's at stake. I think it's important to share, what you're thinking and feeling, because, nobody's going to know if you
Mhm.
don't, say it, if you don't tell them, if you don't share, Now, I realize that there are some situations where, communication is so poor that, people don't feel comfortable or they don't feel safe sharing with in certain environments or with certain people because, maybe the people in their life are very reactionary and so I realize that that happens and that makes communication even more difficult. But, if you're in a space where it is safe and where there's some level of understanding, then yeah, I mean, share those thoughts and feelings. Sometimes, um, people are really afraid of what somebody else's perception is going to be, or they're afraid of being judged. Um, but if you have people in your life who have let you know that they're there to support you and they're not there to judge how you're feeling, then I by all means share, talk about it, because the more that we hide it, the more that we don't share, the worse it gets, and the bigger it feels. So, but when we face something and confront, and in all honesty, I mean, that's really something that I've had to deal with in my life, because in my life, I have been deathly afraid of conflict, because I felt like with conflict comes separation, and a demise of certain relationships that are important to me. And so consequently, I was afraid of confronting things. I was afraid of sharing, how I feel, because I didn't know, you know what I'm saying? I didn't know what the outcome of that was going to be. So I've really had to deal with it in my life. And I would say it's still something that I haven't necessarily um, conquered. I would still say it's a bit of a challenge for me, you know. Um, I still, I'm still one of those, I'm still Rodney King. Can we all just get along? Like, I don't want to deal with conflict, but sometimes you have to. And a lot of times it really can be healthy, when you share, how you feel, and the other person like really hears you. I mean, sometimes we talk about listening as if it's easy. Sometimes it's not easy because ego can get in the way, and I'm in my head and my ego is going, and I'm listening more to that than the person who's trying to share something with me. So, if we can just pause and take ego out of it and just listen, like sometimes I have to tell myself, don't be so reactionary. Just listen. Maybe it's not about you.
All right.
Most of the time, it ain't about you. I mean, we can be, just like we talked about earlier in the show, we can be afraid of the stuff that happened a long time ago. Yeah. We way past it. We're different people now. I mean, but somehow that fear will come up again. And so, but there's still ways to kind of quelch that and stomp that out and not let it overtake you.
Oof, that is a challenge. Now, this one may not be in your lane, but I'll ask it anyway. Are there any herbs, or supplements to help with anxiety? Yeah, I would have read it like
that. Where is Herbert?
Herbert, you need to help.
Where is Herbert when you need him?
No doubt.
Herbs, yeah, that's a little bit out of my lane. I don't know. I know I have, clients have been afraid to tell me that they smoke marijuana. Hey, I don't judge. I mean, I'm not advocating for smoking weed, but, for some people it really is prescribed. And, but outside of that, like, no, I'm sure, there's more educated people in that arena that can talk about different herbs that kind of decrease anxiety. So no, I'm not a professional when it comes to that, but that's definitely something that I probably need to research further, what herbs are available, or even foods. We can talk to nutritionists and dietitians and herbalists to kind of figure out, what works well with your system, so.
Yeah.
Good question. Very good question.
I'm all for the all natural if possible.
Yes.
To avoid anything any rough casualty. Now, we had spoke a little bit about I'm messing it up already. Imposter syndrome.
Yes.
Could you define that for me, please?
Well, imposter syndrome can feel like, I'm gonna see if I can do it justice in describing it, but it can feel like you're in a place or position in life that you don't deserve, or you're really not supposed to be there, and I guess a good description of that would be like, say for instance, I promoted to director, in my job, and again, maybe going back to that old narrative of, maybe you were told you would never be anything and you would never have anything and you wouldn't achieve success. And here you are, you doing it. You're achieving success, and I'm not just talking about monetarily or financially. Right. I mean, you have become a leader. But that old narrative pops up and says, what the hell are you doing here? You don't belong here. Who said you could be here?
Yeah.
And so therefore you begin to feel like, well, am I supposed to be here? Maybe they were right, you know?
Right.
So that's imposter syndrome, and people deal with that a lot, you know, because of those old narratives, you know, somewhere along the way, you know, somebody significant in your life, whether it was a romantic relationship or family relationship or friend relationship, told you you're not going to amount to anything. Who do you think you are?
Mm.
I remember, you know, getting in trouble as a kid, and my parents used to say, "Who do you think you are?"
Mm-hmm.
And I would be like, "I don't know. I don't know. I don't know who I think I am." You know.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that comes up, and I promise you, wherever God has you in your life, that's where you're supposed to be. Whatever measure of success you're obtaining in your life, that's where you're supposed to be. It's
Mm-hmm.
for you. You
Mm.
know, who else could it be for but you? You
Right.
know, and the you that you are, it never goes away. I mean, we are much more than this flesh and bone. You know, we're much more than that. And God designed us to be more than that. So we don't have to let, you know, something that somebody said to us or did to us, or even their behavior, we don't have to let that stop us from being who we are.
Mm-hmm.
So,
You know, in my case, getting back into the workforce to take care of some odds and ends and stuff, and I
mm-hmm,
work for a temp agency. So I'm basically, I was with this company for about 2 years. Due to COVID, I opted to sit out, and I'm gonna go back in. So I thought I was gonna go exactly back where I was, which was a desktop technician. So now when I saw the contract, I'm a senior desktop technician,
mm-hmm,
and that comes with more money because it's more responsibility. But that's where I had you're not going to be able to handle this. These are people that are going to come to you for questions and stuff like that, and started doubting myself. And it's strange. Even with this
mm-hmm,
very platform that we're on, there was a lot of things that I doubted myself on, but I still kept going, even though I doubted myself, if you would. And
mm-hmm.
every time I always break through and I still doubt myself. So it's like, okay, there comes a point where I myself need to say, all right, this false evidence is appearing real to me and I need to change that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to get a hold of that. That is definitely a battle that I go through for a while. So,
Well, I can tell you, I'm proud of you. And, you know, and I know that, you know, with doing these shows and you know, and I'm not trying to speak to the whole Blast family, but I know that there's a lot of things that you manage and mitigate that people don't see, you know,
mhm,
and you're good at it, you know, and
thanks.
so I can definitely appreciate that, and I'm glad that, you know, you realize that, yeah, no, some of the things that I think and feel are not real. It
Mhm,
really isn't. It isn't real. I mean, what I'm actually doing is real. You
mhm,
know, I
yeah,
was talking to someone today, and you know, they were expressing that they didn't feel like what they were doing was a contributing factor.
mhm,
And I'm like, no, I don't care how big or small what you're doing, you're making a contribution every single day. You know, whether it's something that's client facing or your internal clients at work, at home. You know, it doesn't matter what it is. What you do is significant. You know,
mm,
sometimes we see ourselves as being so small,
right,
but it's not true. It's really not true. So,
Hmm.
As we were kind of talking about the SOS thing, I mean, the orienting, the old part of that, the orienting yourself. I mean, sometimes it takes a little effort because, we truly forget who we really are. And so, but, I appreciate, the things that you've shared on this show. And I think it resonates and connects a lot with what a lot of us go through. So,
Hmm. Hmm. Thank you. I appreciate you and what you've been sharing. Um this let me read this.
okay.
Anxiety makes you worry about tomorrow when all you can really control is today. And that is so true.
Mhm.
I always have the what if, which is way down the road, and I just need to focus on right here. And uh, we've been doing this now with Blast over a year, and we're still wanting it to become something major, and it's not easy.
Well, I mean, it is major. It's already major. I
Mm,
mean, you're already changing lives, and you have yet to see the full manifestation of what this company is doing and what this company is about. You're in the process of expanding. So, a lot of times in the present, which is a present, which is a gift,
right.
we minimize our full impact. We minimize what we're doing. And so, and that's because sometimes either we don't have vision, and I don't mean that you don't have a visionary idea about your company and
Mm,
I'm not talking about that, but sometimes we lack vision. Sometimes we can't, in the present, we can't see the full manifestation of everything that is to come, you
right.
know. So there's much more to come that you can't see right now. And so sometimes in that, we get discouraged, and I know I have, be like, forget it. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm done. I'm out. Forget this.
Hmm.
But and I've shared with some people, like, I am so glad that there are certain things that I could not see ahead of time, you know,
Right.
because I promise you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I would have quit. I'm like,
Right.
I don't care. Give me a mop and a bucket and leave
Hmm.
me alone. I just want to, I don't care. I just want to shed somewhere. Just, because mentally and emotionally, I was out of it, because
Right.
I didn't know what was to come. But now I can look back and say, I'm thankful, I'm happy, I'm glad, I'm full of joy, because if I had seen some of the struggles ahead of time, I
Right.
promise you I would have quit. I would have quit. I know I would have quit,
Most of us would, yeah.
you know?
Hmm.
So that's what it is. And I've made reference before to Eckhart Tolle. I've read a couple of his books, and sometimes you say to yourself, and this too shall pass. Nothing will always stay the same. So
Right.
um, we're always looking for greater and greater. Not that it isn't always great, but greater and greater. As they say, the best is yet to come. So,
Right. Indeed. So we are getting close to the end of this episode. Once again, great topics. Great topic, excuse me. What would you like to end on a note with?
well, since we've been talking about fear and anxiety today. The main thing I want people to remember is the acronym: false evidence appearing real. fear isn't real. It's something that we have contrived. It's something that, maybe mentally we have focused on, but it's not necessarily real. And so, the thing is we're not necessarily eradicating the feelings of fear, but being able to take courage that, I want you to move in spite of the fear, to have courage to move, even though it feels scary, because it's just a feeling. It's not a reality.
Indeed. I take it and receive it for myself. That's for sure. All right. Well, everyone, thank you for joining Living the Abundant Life. We will be back here again next Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Central. And we ask you to please be safe, and we'll see you next week. Have a good one.
Happy Friday.
Indeed. See ya.